Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? Thank you for joining us. We appear to have a bit of a link issue with some people wanting to join at the moment, so we're just getting that sorted. But in the meantime, I think it's probably time to start, seeing as we're a little bit late. Thank you for coming and welcome to today's Innovate UK Smart Steps to Success Masterclass, being delivered by us here at Connected Places Catapult in collaboration with the team at Grantry. Just going to play a little bit of an intro video now while we get some other people to join, and hopefully the issues with the joining link will be sorted by the time that is finished. Well, good morning, and thank you for joining us today. Today we are running a Innovate UK Smart Steps to Success Masterclass, hosted by us here at Connected Places Catapult in collaboration with Grantry. The agenda is for 10:30 through to 11:30. We've got quite a tight, packed agenda. I'm going to welcome you and just tell you a little bit more about Connected Places Catapult and the work we do in the SME innovation support team. Ruth, our program manager for the TRIG program, the Transport Research Innovation Grant program, will just quickly introduce the TRIG program, and then we'll hand over to Veronica from Grantry, who will give us a presentation on successfully applying to Innovate UK funding. To finish off, my colleague Metodi will be talking about the Innovate UK Edge RTO grant program, which is something that we can deliver and provide fully funded support for a short piece of work with a catapult. So I am Richard Wigley. I am the SME Innovation Support Lead at Connected Places Catapult. Me and my team support SMEs across our technology ecosystems. The Connected Places Catapult is the UK's innovation accelerator for cities, transport and place leadership. We're one of 9 catapult centres across the country, and we're perhaps the most tricky to understand. Our name doesn't necessarily easily translate into what we do. So we have a short video for a couple of minutes that explains what we do in far more elegant terms and far quicker than I could. So if you just bear with me, a couple of minutes video will give you a full explanation of exactly what we do.
For millennia, cities have been places where bright ideas spark. From the earliest riverside trading posts that turned into today's sprawling megacities in the digital global economy. Cities can create positive experiences for people, always connected by technology. And when connected places work well, it's good for people and the planet. But making a connected place succeed is hard. There's loads of stakeholders, businesses, regulators, and community groups who want to be involved across every mode of transport, every type of building, the infrastructure that underpins them, and the data and digital platforms that connect them. All of this is needed to help people, communities, neighbourhoods, and local businesses to prosper. Now, more than ever, we need our connected places to succeed. We are in a climate emergency. Rapid urbanisation means 3/4 of us will be living in a city by 2050. And new technologies are revolutionising the way that we live, the way we work, and the way we travel, creating fantastic opportunities for innovation, jobs, and growth. At Connected Places Catapult, we connect people, places, and businesses for a future of sustainable growth and prosperity. We are the UK's innovation accelerator for cities, transport, and place leadership. We are trusted across government, industry, and academia, connecting new technologies, business models, and investment opportunities. So join with us and be better connected for a future of sustainable growth and prosperity.
Thank you. So I know people are joining at the minute. We've had a few gremlins in the system this morning, as you've probably just noticed, as the video stopped there halfway through. Now, there we go. So the SME support team within the Connected Places Catapult is designed to support organisations from, and it's a bit cheesy, but we say from PhD to PLC. As you can see from this rather busy funnel, we have a really, really active programme of support that comes from supporting PhDs and access to expertise in academia, idea generation and market and technology research, through to programmes that support starting up and scaling up. We run a range of innovation funding programmes. We run skills masterclasses such as today, and we have a range of business support events across the year. What I just quickly like to do is pass over to Ruth, who is the programme lead for one of our innovation funding programmes, the TRIG programme. I know many of you here today have been on the TRIG programme and are coming towards the end of your funding. And this is an ideal opportunity to find out more about some potential follow-ons. So I'll hand over to Ruth.
Good morning, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I am Ruth Martman, and I lead on the Transport Research and Innovation Grant Programme for this year. This is for my cohort here. Hopefully that you will gain some insight into what is available to follow on from TRIG. I'm very aware that a lot of you have asked me for what happens next. And this is part of the process to help you understand what can happen next. I will be doing some more in some later coffee connectors with you. I'm also just going to say this for the record, that I will be sending this to all of the cohorts. So those that haven't been able to log in at all will be getting a copy of this as well. So I hope you enjoy it. If anybody of my cohort has any questions for me afterwards, that they can just filter it through my email address as usual. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ruth. And as we have a tight schedule today, I'd just like to hand over to Veronica from Grantry, who will be talking about the, oh crikey, sorry, there's gremlins in the system all over the place. Next slide, please. Veronica, I think you've got control of the slides now, so if you'd like to, here we go, thank you. Fantastic. So handing over to Veronica from Grantry for the grant funding masterclass. Hi, Veronica, you're on mute at the minute. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry. What do I have to start again, or did I get muted just now?
Yes, please start again. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Richard. I'll do it quicker then. My name is Veronica, and I am Grantree Partnership Manager. So what we do at Grantree is we support companies such as the ones attending here today to access non-dilutive funding. So that means we've been around for 12 years, and we've been helping companies access over 400 million across different non-dilutive strategies, including R&D tax credits, advanced funding, grants, and innovation loans. So we're going to concentrate on grants today. If anyone ever has questions about the other strategies, please always feel free to reach out. And I'm joined by my colleague, Nancy Scottford, who is one of our grants partners. And her job is to understand at what stage of your innovation you are and what are your challenges, and helping you form a project that would be grant fundable, and then help you understand what would be the right competitions. So let's jump straight into these. I'm not able to move the slides. Oh, there we go. So we're going to go through all the questions around grant funding, and we'll end up with giving some tips around how to write successful applications. So I can't go to the next one. Oh, here we go. So, we are big fans of alternative funding because, especially at your early stages, if you apply for a grant, that means you get funding for your projects without losing equity in your business. And this is also positive for when you speak with an investor, because it means it shows that you're able to bring funding into your company, and you're not diluting your investors' shares either. It's also grant funding. It's quite useful for what we tend to call Friday afternoon projects. By this we mean those projects that don't sit on your main roadmap because there's never enough funding to develop. But those projects that get the team really excited, because you know that if you were to go for those projects, you would get a bigger market share or a new market altogether. So that's a good way of using non-dilutive funding. And also it helps you bridging the gap until your next funding round. If you are trying to fundraise, it gives you a little bit more of time before you go for a fundraising round. So the next one, please. I don't think I'm able to connect them. Okay, so this is important to understand when it is advisable to go for grant funding and when you can use grant funding. So the reason I put like this picture of a book from Arthur Conan Doyle, it's because when we talk about applications, and as you will see later, there's a lot of storytelling. Is how do you explain your story to the 5 Innovate UK assessors to make sure that they get on your side and then decide to award you the grant funding. But we'll get to that. The grant funding normally exists for those sort of modeling, prototyping, and piloting phases. So all those phases that are deemed too risky for investors. That's why they call it the valley of death. So it's that bit in between that where you really need the funding, and you will have to articulate this in your application and explain why, without grant funding, you wouldn't be able to move forward with your project. Can I go to the next one, please? It is important to know that grant funding is for projects, so it's not here to fund your business. So unlike VC money, we're thinking about a specific project that we have a beginning and an end, and depending on the competition, it will tell you how many months the project can be and what are the project costs. So it's always important to understand that and to look at the sort of at the scope of the competition and see if you really fit, and if you can really fit a project within the months that are sort of set in the competition. Next one, please. This is quite key, this slide. It's to understand what kind of projects you can put forward for a competition. So we're talking about, you've identified a big problem. And when we talk about a big problem, we're talking about there is a big market. It's a growing market. There are people or companies that are willing to pay for your solution. And that is a real problem. And if you resolve it, it will have an impact. So the impact will be commercial on the one hand. So we're talking about the return on investment for the taxpayer, and that you will have an economic impact. You will, because if you solve this project, then it looks like you will be creating more employment, and though you will be paying more taxes. So all of that needs to be articulated. And also you will have an impact on society and the environment. And you will have to explain very clearly what's your clear innovation. So it's an innovation that is technically risky. That's why you need the funding. But if you were to resolve this problem and you take it forward, this will be impactful and game changing. Those are like lots of the typical words that you will hear when we're talking about grant funding. So it has to be game changing, and you will have to explain why this is different from what is already existing in the market and why you're better from anything else that's being done by the competition. So then next one, please. I think this is the best way to understand that is by giving a bit of an example. So we've been working with a company that's thinking about sort of car insurance solutions for the time, let's say 2050, we will have non-autonomous vehicles together with potentially autonomous vehicles at the same time. So what happens with autonomous vehicles when there is a crash? So you cannot use your typical methods of insurance underwriting. How do you allocate liability? And this company is working on a solution, which is like a software kind of hardware. It's one of those black boxes that you would put in a car. And by using AI, they should be able to model what happens in case of car crash. And they should be able to allocate sort of liability. So there is a problem there because obviously the problem is quite clear. There is a market because it will be all the cars, potentially the autonomous, but also potentially you could retrofit the non-autonomous. And then they will have to explain clearly what's their innovation and how the solution is different to the existing ones and why is it better than anything else that's happening. So you get the problem, the solution, the innovation, and the market, which are all the things that you need to be thinking about and explain very clearly in your application. So the next one, please. So grant funding, it's for a very specific time as well. As I was saying, it's for that time between development and validation. If we go to the next slide, I think it will be more clear that you cannot apply if this is just a concept on a paper, which I don't think it will be the case of anyone here. And also, if you are too close to market, there are other strategies. You can potentially apply for an innovation loan, but if you are going to go for a grant, it's for that bit in the middle. So the Innovate UK talks in different ways, and this is generally shared across most grants. So normally if you're sort of familiar with technology readiness levels, we're thinking about something around 3 to 6 that will, through the project, will evolve to technology readiness level 7 to 9. And then after at the end of the project, you will work a few more years to get it closer to market. They also talk about funding either feasibility studies or industrial research. And I think the best way of explaining that is with an example. We can go to the next slide, please. So we've been working with a company that is working with a body sensor. So they're creating this whole platform, but before they can even get there, they need to be able to gather data from the human body. And for that, their materials need to be bodily safe. So if we're talking about feasibility studies, we'll be thinking about those early project killers. If I cannot gather the data from the body with those sensors, and those sensors are not bodily safe, then I won't be able to carry on with the rest of the project. So you will see that some grants allow for feasibility studies, and that will be an example. And if we're talking about industrial research, that's one step forward. So once you know your early project killer, so you know that you can gather the data, now you need to think about demonstration at scale. So can I try with 200 users? Can I gather data consistently? What happens with the battery? So we're thinking about a demonstrator at scale. So that would be industrial research, like the second part. So some grants will allow for one or both, and that will be quite clear when you read the competition scope. So the next one, please. It's important to understand at what stage your project is. So if we're talking about sort of earlier feasibility studies or later industrial research or experimental development, which is a bit too, experimental development is when you're even closer to the market. And the reason why, it's because when you apply for a grant, you will have to explain very clearly in your application, what are you doing to the risks, your risks. So if you're talking about feasibility studies, so like an earlier project, you will have, it is expected that you will have a very sort of high technological risk that you are de-risking by explaining who is in your team. So you have someone in your team who's an expert, or you have a good partnership with a university. So that's how you de-risk your very risky sort of side of the project. And also we talk about commercial risks. So you will have some evidence that there is a need in the market. Even though you haven't proven it yet and it's early stages, there is some evidence that you can bring into this project. And then when you get to a later stage, the early sort of unknown unknowns and like highly risky aspects have been de-risked, but you will have to explain how you're going to do sort of a demonstrator project and how you're going to de-risk the problems of demonstrating at scale. So depending on which stage you are, it's what you will have to put in an application. Next one, please. There are several sources of grant funding. I know that we said this presentation is going to be mainly around the SMART grant, but I wanted to share two sources that I think could be relevant for all of you here. So if we go to the next slide, please. Well, I'm going to leave the EU grants for the moment on the side, and I'm going to concentrate on the SMART and the theme competitions. So the SMART, you probably heard about it. It's a rolling competition. There's one currently open at the moment with a deadline for submission sort of end of September. And you will have two main streams. So if you are a sole applicant, you can apply for projects up to 500K. And it will be for projects between 12 and 18 months. And if you are applying as a consortia, then you can apply for up to 2 million, and it can be for longer projects up to 36 months. The SMART, it's highly competitive because lots of people apply and it's industry agnostic. So you will be competing with people from completely different industries. And then we have the themed competitions that are highly targeted. The thresholds are a bit lower because they're quite niche and you would be competing just with people in your same industry. However, you never know when they're going to appear. So unlike the SMART that happens all the time, these competitions that just come and go, there's no way you can know when they're going to come up. However, with early conversations around projects, there are very good ways in which you can form a project and have it ready for when a competition that's relevant to you appears. Next slide, please. I picked some of the competitions that I think could be interesting because they're all around transport. So we have some around the maritime side of things. There are the ATIs for civil aviation. Then we have the net zero for automated technology. And then we have the rail demonstrations as well. So like covering different parts of transport, just to name a few competitions. And then of course the SMART, which is still open. If we go to the next one, please. These are some websites that could be interesting, especially for anyone attending today. The Innovate UK website is always a good starting point. Same as the KTN, and then more specifically, maybe for some of the companies here, the Advanced Propulsion Center. However, I think most of the competitions would be in the Innovate UK website, so it's always a good place to start. Next one, please. And one more. So there are a few things that you have to bear in mind when you're thinking about applying for a grant. So as I was saying, it's go to the scope and read about the length of the project, the costs that they would cover. So is it up to 500K? Is it more? You have to be quite careful around that and not to put not to submit an application with the wrong costs, because they will just not even read your application if you make that mistake. And then look about collaboration requirements. So can you apply as a sole applicant? Do you need to have a consortia? Match funding, I will explain in the next slide. And then they cover different costs. And especially for global companies, it's important that you remember that a big chunk of grants can go towards labor costs. However, we're talking about employees that are on payroll and subject to PAYE. So that's important to know. And same with subcontractors, most grants will expect subcontractors to be UK based. And then they will cover lots of costs like overheads, material costs and capital usage, etc. So if we go to the next one, please. This is very relevant because most of Innovate UK grants, and this is a typical example from the SMART grant, they will cover up to 70% of the cost of the project. So that means that you have to have the other 30%. And the reason why you need to have that 30% is that on the one hand, Innovate UK will require it, but on the other hand, if we go to the next slide, it will come a bit more clear. So as you can see, it's a lengthy process. So this is not for money that you will get into your account as a lump sum immediately. So you will apply for the grant, then you have 3 months until the deadline for the competition, a couple more months until you are notified. And once you start working on then you have a couple more months until you start working on the project, and you will be paid quarterly in arrears. So for those first 3 months, you really need to have that much funding, because it's the only way in which you can cover the costs. And then you will submit those costs, and then you will recover them from Innovate UK. Can we go to the next one, please? These are some tips that we work with lots of grant writers and Innovate UK assessors, and they've been sharing some tips with us based on experience. You have to remember that you are convincing 5 people. Some of them will not understand your technology. So you have to write the application in a way that makes it very exciting for them. So you have all your technical side and how to explain things have to be super correct, but also you have to make it very compelling. So you have to explain what is your impact, what's the big problem, and how you're going to solve it. And also it has to be quite cohesive. So you will have some scored questions, some unscored questions, and you will have appendices. And when you are writing and you're getting closer to submission, it's very easy to make mistakes. So if you're writing the application yourselves, I will always advise that you get someone who hasn't been involved in the writing of the application, so someone from a different team, to read it and sort of try to spot any inconsistencies, because that's really important. They will mark you down if they spot things like that. So then next one, please. It's important that you write it in plain English. As I said, some of the assessors will not know your technology, so don't use any jargon, keep it simple. And keep it engaging. The next one, please. It's important that you use evidence. So you cannot put any links and any URLs. They are not allowed to go outside of the application. So, but what you can do is you can use the appendices. So you can make references to the appendices, and that's a good way of showing and adding any evidence that you want to add to support your application. And the next one, please. Format can help you as well. There are different ways in which you have to do whatever is required and answer all the questions, but anything else that you want to add to the appendices to make sure that you get a stronger application. So there are many ways in which you can do it, and you can be a little bit creative within certain constraints, but that's something that you can do, and it can help you get a better application. And the next one, please. So that's it in terms of like how to write. It's just a few tips. There are many, many more, but those are some to kind of help you and guide you. And the way in which we work, and very quickly, as I said at the beginning, is to try to understand where are you in terms of your technology development. Try to form a project that would be grant fundable, and I think that's a bigger sort of chunk of our work is trying to understand where you are and where you're trying to be, and what could be within all of your technology and your R&D, what could be grant fundable, and then help you find what is the right competition. So maybe this grant, but it may be one of the other grants, and try to find the one that suits your technology best. And then the second part is that we help you with the writing. So we have a team of lots of people with PhDs who have been writing grant applications for about 10 years, and they really know how to make a compelling application. The next one, please. This is who we are. I already went through this one, so the next one, please. This is just like one case study. It's maybe not too relevant to the audience today because it's the biomedical catalyst. It's a different grant, but we helped them with 850K in grant funding. So that was a very successful application. And the next slide, please. Oh, this is part of the team, and we'll just move to the next one. Our team is growing. This is like just a few people. I think that hopefully gives you a bit of an overview of what's available at the moment and when can you apply for a grant and what's relevant for a grant application or not. If you have any, I don't know if we're going to go to Q&A now or later, but any questions, always feel free to come and talk to us.
Thank you, Veronica. Thank you very much for that. Excellent presentation and hopefully some real insights into how to be successful with the Innovate UK application window that's closing towards the end of September. We're going to do Q&A at the end, just slightly rejigging things. If anyone would like a specific question, please feel free to use the Q&A function at the bottom of Zoom. We can then answer specific questions ourselves. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Metodi now, who's going to do a quick overview of the Innovate UK Edge RTO grant support for us. Thanks.
Hello. Hope you can hear me. There's an echo. Can you hear me? I can see it's also good. So I hope everyone can hear me. So I am Metodi and I'm part of the innovation support team here at Catapult, and I'm going to quickly run through Innovate UK Edge RTO grant. So this is not your usual grant in a way that it is more of a referral program that is provided by Innovate UK Edge, which is an innovation support service offered part of the Innovate UK kind of family of services, offered fully funded to high growth potential SMEs. It is 100% funding small grants that allow you essentially to kind of hire or get access to assets and capabilities of the Catapult's network, including Connect Places Catapult. So it is an SME-led project. The Connect Places Catapult, as well as other RTOs who are on suppliers, are more their supplier. So again, another reason this is not kind of the traditional grant is that first, it's not publicized. You need to be referred by Innovate UK Edge, for which we can help you with. And second, it is a great opportunity to actually think of what expertise, what capabilities you don't necessarily have in-house, and you can hire from or kind of use from RTOs in the Catapult network, rather than think about what the funder wants to get solved for themselves. So as I said, they are fairly small but kind of impactful grants, up to 15K of contracted work that can help you improve your product, service, or process. It is open to all UK registered trading companies under the minimum finance assistance, former de minimis rule, once you get onboarded on the Innovate UK Edge, which I will explain in a couple of seconds. Another thing is we have been delivering this for a couple of years, and we found out that those who once have kind of utilized these grants cannot use it again for now. So those who haven't used it, you can have like less competition out there to access it. How examples of how you can utilize this grant is essentially anything that can help your business growth and kind of your product and business growth and scale through access to kind of technical know-how or sector specific knowledge, advice on regulatory and government procurement processes, analysis and modeling support, independent third-party technology validation, And a nice way to look at it is as a stepping stone for a bigger project, be it, for example, smart grant or anything else for which you need to kind of show that what you are pitching has been somehow validated by an RTO or ourselves. How to apply for the RTO Growth Fund? As I said, it is not through the Innovate UK main website. You need to get in touch with Innovate UK Edge advisor. If you haven't had done so yet, we are happy to kind of help you connect with our colleagues from Innovate UK Edge, and then they go through their own kind of onboarding process. Once they assess your needs and potential, they may advise that you can benefit from accessing this grant, and we'll invite you to submit an expression of interest, which is essentially outline of your request for support, and then they will refer the support or this expression of interest to a catapult, in our case, Connect Places Catapult. This is the time where we want to kind of sit down with you and work out properly scope and cost a small project that will deliver the maximum for this grant, which will result in a CPC offer to you that we can then incorporate into your full application that you submit to the Innovate UK Edge and get your grant offer letter. This will result in it is a first come first serve program. So the competition is based rather when you submit it as opposed to what you submit. So don't wait until the end year. The sooner the better, because also it will help us kind of plan and kind of ring fence the resource that you need from us in due course. So once you get the grant offer letter, we'll sign a kind of standard consultancy service contract with you and kind of get on with the job essentially. Next slide, please. Examples of work that we can, that Connect Place Catapult can do for you specifically. We are, a catapult, there are some catapults which are more kind of asset rich. There are other catapults which are more kind of knowledge and kind of market oriented. We are in that latter group. So we don't have like huge amounts of kind of laboratory equipment and testing facilities, but we have a great depth and breadth of market knowledge, expertise, and connections in the Connect Places sectors. You can see those sectors outlined at the bottom of the slide. So we are working with maritime and logistics, air mobility and airports, rail and stations, homes and housing, integrated infrastructure. So this is everything that underpins those 4 places before, and place leadership. So as long as your technology can solve issues, challenges in any of those sectors, regardless of the technology itself, we'll be happy to help with, for example, assessing the product market fit, do a bit of modeling or analysis to plan the introduction of your product into this kind of heavily influenced by public regulation marketplaces. We can help you with outlining a business case for future funder, investor, or government, or we can kind of help you measure and kind of verify the impact of your technology on on your business, but also on the society and the wider economy and on the environment as well. We have a good suite of experts in the technical space as well, so we can review your product offering, develop some use cases or validate some use cases for your technology, and also explore your data strategy and help you with the data analysis, kind of verify your algorithms or kind of line of code if you like. And we also have a very, very strong human-centered design team, which can help you kind of future-proof your solution, or be it investigating how people use it now or in 10 years' time, kind of see how your solution fits into the wider kind of complex systems in which we all live, work, and travel. All this expertise usually kind of spans a project of is incorporated in a project of about 3 months. So the 15K usually gets kind of 15 of 20 days across 3 months of kind of intensive experts kind of time. And the way we like to deliver those projects is that through regular touch points with our SME clients. So we don't see it as something that kind of we are outsourced to do for you, but we rather, to get the most out of us, the more involved you are, the more you can get from us as well. So these are very sharp and focused projects. As I said, 3 months rolls out very quickly, and we like to work alongside you through iterations and keeping up a chance for feedback during the project. At the end of the project, as I said, you can expense the full cost of 15K to your grant funder. And next slide. So these are some metrics from previous from previous projects. So we've delivered so far 13 projects. Almost all our expertise have been involved in any combination of those projects: built environment, modeling, appraisal, new mobility engineers, also data scientists and designers. As I said, 3 months is the average duration of the course, and you can see some nice sounding testimonials from companies that have worked with us, and we have them either cut short their product development time, or put up a nice compelling business case for future funder, or validate their technology use case as an example of project that we delivered. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Thank you very much, Metodi, there. So thank you, Metodi and Veronica. There's a couple of questions sitting in the Q&A. Please feel free to use the Q&A for any more questions that you may have. Just to answer quickly, yes, the slides in the presentation will be shared with all attendees. I know that a few of you had a few issues with the links this morning joining, so the slides and the presentations will be shared with everyone who was signed up to come. Another question around what is the best way to use the appendix pages in an Innovate UK Smart Grant application? I suppose that one of the best answered by Veronica. So Veronica, if you want to sort of...
I'd let Nancy answer that one. It will be a more comprehensive answer to that question.
Okay, well, Nancy from Grantry, if you'd like to unmute and talk about how best to use the appendix pages in Innovate UK Smart Grants.
Yeah, of course. So as Veronica spoke about in her presentation, any application is around risk. So you're looking at where you are in your project in terms of the tech and also the commercial side of things. And what you want to do is firstly understand where you are, where the technical risks sit and how high the technical risks are and how high the commercial risks are. You then want to leverage that in terms of your overall narrative by speaking throughout, so that you've got a continuous narrative around, this is how we're going to mitigate these risks. And that's how you start to tell the story, by really talking to those risks. But the appendices are a really useful tool to be able to kind of add a way more depth to that kind of risk story. So the first thing that I would always advise is actually looking at it's question 1 now in a smart application, which is around the innovation and your idea. So use that appendix to articulate firstly where the current state of the art is and where it will be after you've carried out this project. So a really neat way that we do that quite often is to almost like have a before and after. So I think everyone's probably seen before and after photos from various things online. Almost use your first page and a first appendix to actually kind of complete your own before and after. So this is where we are now. This is where the risky parts are. Evidence that risk in terms of the technical complexity in way more detail there, and use that to then cross-reference back into your application, and then articulate on, let's say, the other side of the page, assuming that's your left-hand side of the page. Then the right-hand side of the page is actually at the end of the project, this is what the future would look like, and this is where we're going to get things to. And then you're really able to articulate, leveraging that appendix, that this is technically complex. Look at all this evidence. We've gone into way more detail here, and this is where we'll get to at the end of that. The other two really important things with any appendix as well is, which you'll see throughout, is your project plan. So again, that speaks a little bit more to like specific risks, but what Innovate UK will want to see there is that you're well organized, you understand the interdependencies between your milestones, and it's very clear that actually along the pathway of the grant that you've thought about it in enough detail, and that those little risks along the way will be mitigated. And you want to be able to go into as much detail as you can with a Gantt chart there, and just pull out the key highlights to put in your application. And the third really important thing, which again speaks to risk, is your risk register. And again, you want to link all these things back together, particularly with the project plan, but you would highlight the very specific risks based on kind of commercial, technical, economic, social, and be able to write those into your application with a clear risk mitigation plan, which then is able to link back to your overall project plan as well. So those three things are really important, and the things that I would include. So risk register, specific risks, project plan in detail that you cross-reference, and then the current state of the art and underpinning innovation, and how that would kind of create that before and after picture with the really, really way more detail in terms of evidence that you can then reference from your main application.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Another quick question for either Nancy or Veronica to pick up on. What are the success rates at the minute with Innovate UK applications, and what are the rules regarding resubmissions if you're unsuccessful?
I can take this one. So I think the last round of SMART, the overall success rate was about 3%, 4%. And then the in terms of, what was the other question? Sorry, Richard.
What are the rules around resubmissions?
Resubmission.
Yeah, so resubmissions, you can submit the same application twice. Perhaps something else important to note there, that if you submit an application to SMART, if you submit 2 applications and both happen to be successful, you could only take one forward.
Fantastic, thank you. Another question that's just come in: is there a good Gantt program / model you can recommend? In the past, I have used Smartsheet, which is an online tool which is easy to access. You can have a free trial, which produces pretty decent Gantt charts. It's pretty simple to use. Veronica, Nancy, any other ones that you would recommend at all?
No, we use Smartsheets as well.
Yeah, definitely worth signing up to Smartsheets. You can actually use it for quite a while for free. The only downside is you have to have the Smartsheet logo on the bottom, but it's quite discreet, so don't worry about that. Yeah, just to reiterate this, the slides will be shared at the end. A quick question for Metodi about the Innovate UK Edge RTO grants. Is there a typical timeline from beginning the process to being able to start that is available at all?
Well, the typical timeline is, again, once you are on board in the Innovate UK Edge program and they refer your expression features to us, we can, it's a matter of weeks to scope out a joint project and incorporate our offer to your full applications to Innovate UK Edge. So the process, it's open, there's no cut-off dates, and it's on rolling basis. So it's open until the funds last. And as far as I know, there are still some funds in the pot. So again, it's first come, first served basis. And as long as you don't wait for the year end when everyone will be in a rush to complete their projects and to expense them, I think we can, from start to finish, 4 months, 1 month preparation, 3 months delivery is a realistic timeline.
Excellent. And with regards to the Innovate UK Edge RTO funding, what's the best way to connect with an Innovate UK Edge advisor? If you are not talking to Innovate UK Edge advisor, we can definitely help you with kind of getting in touch with some. The thing to keep in mind is that which advisor again depends on your postcode coverage or your business postcode coverage. So we have a good working relationship with some, but not with all. So there is the very least we can do is probably, as we speak, share their gateway portal where you can submit your kind of information, your postcode, and then you'll be referred to the best advisor locally and take it from there. So I can share the problem. Excellent. Another quick question for the Grantry team, Veronica and or Nancy. What are, within Innovate UK Smart, what are is it better to go for a smaller amount, or is it better to go for a larger amount? And with the collaboration necessary for the larger amount, do you have any recommendations of hacks that can get you a higher score at all?
So if it's a first application, I wouldn't recommend going for the collaborative higher amount. We would always recommend going as either a collaboration or a single applicant sub 500k. In terms of the realm between sort of the 100 to 500 and success differentiation there is no real difference. So we recommend most people, obviously with cost and value for money being a thing, and as looking at it is looking at like its value for money and it gets you to where you need to be, that, you know, you should be applying for the 499 if that makes sense. 499 is in 499,000, so just under the £500,000 mark. In terms of the later stage, so that kind of up to 2 million collaborative projects, it really needs to be essentially it's around your commercial application and what you're going to get out of that partnership. So in order to get the higher marks, what you're looking at typically is a demonstrator project. So you're looking at a pilot project with that end customer, perhaps a couple of end customers. So to get the extra marks, really we want to see that actually there's clear reasons as to why you would be working with them. You're likely to be covering off like technological complexity related to issues of scale. So you've moved from those project killers through to the kind of more kind of issues of scale in terms of, well, if we're going to put this through to the commercial market, how are we going to make it suited to the end user? And with that, I'd say the really thing that pushes you over the edge there is likely to be based on actually what is the thing that you're going to get out of that collaboration? Is it access to some kind of unique data set that's going to get you ahead of the competition? Is that data set going to allow you to then train your algorithms to be more advanced? You know, those are the things that you want to be able to address, to be able to articulate that these collaborations are meaningful and they're going to get us to the next stage, and that next stage is above and beyond the competition, particularly from a technological standpoint. So I'd say if you're looking at that needs to be very, very clearly articulated with those clear outcomes and route to market straight off the back of that as well.
Thank you. Another quick question with regards to match funding. Where in the process for applications or running a project do you have to have the match funding secured for?
So you would need it up front. So if you're successful in an application, you'll go through Innovate UK's due diligence process. That's usually within 4 weeks. And you need to be able to show at that point. So, you know, think about it. You've got the deadline date, then a successful notification date, and then 4 weeks, within 4 weeks, you would need to be able to show that you've got that match funding. That match funding could potentially be extended in terms of, like, you might be able to push it to 6 weeks if you're, just finalizing from a heads of terms and it's very clear that there's intent there from an investor, but it needs to be confirmed well in advance. So you want to be in a position that you're lining up your investors to say that if we get this grant, they will commit. That's typically what we see happen.
And for Metodi, just with the Edge RTO, could you just explain a little bit about how the £15,000 works there? Is it you as a company are given £15,000, or is it a little bit more complicated?
So it is a little bit more complicated. So once you've been onboarded on the program by your Innovate UK Edge advisor, essentially you have to have the 15K in the bank. So you pay your chosen catapult as a subcontractor essentially, and then you can expense this cost to Innovate UK Edge, who reimburse you 100% up to 15K, which means that technically, if the project is larger, if you want kind of to contract a larger piece of work to the catapult, you can, and then up to 15K will be reimbursed as long as it's part of the project and it's been agreed. It's kind of not something that comes on top of your original application. You can expense the 15K and pay the rest out of your account, essentially.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Mindful of the fact that we're just about to get to 11:30, so that's the end. Thank you very much to our presenters, Veronica and Nancy from Grantry, Metodi here from Connected Places Catapult, and also Ruth for introduction. The slides and the presentation will be available online. Thank you for persevering with us, people who had slight issues joining the link this morning. It seems that the gremlins haven't been on train strike and have made things slightly worse for us today. But thank you for bearing with us while we get those things sorted. If there's any further questions, the email addresses for myself, Ruth and Metodi, also for Veronica and Nancy from Grantry are in the presentations. Please feel free to get in touch with us, and please feel free to reach out and ask any questions, particularly around the Edge RTO grants that we can help you navigate. We can also help you with developing winning smart applications, with support from the catapults as well. Thank you very much for your time. I hope it was interesting and useful, and look forward to hearing or speaking from you again soon. Thank you very much.